Tvam lokapalo dipati prihat. Oh, what's the meter? Lokapalo dipati prihat. Yeah, that's the meter. Virya pahodurmada viramaninam. Okay. Tvam lokapalo dipati prihat.
Lokapalo Adhipatir.
Oh, you don't have. Should I just then myself sing it?
Okay.
Vidya pahodurmada viramaninam Vijitya loke kila daitya danavan Yadraja suyena puraya jatrabom. I guess I'll just read the translation because you don't have it anywhere written. Translation to this says, "You are the guardian of an entire sphere and a ruler of wide fame. Having crushed the might of arrogant and conceited warriors and having conquered all the Daityas and Danavas in the world, you once performed Rajasuya sacrifice to the Lord." Next verse. Ta eva mutsikta madena vidvisha tridam pralabdo bhagavan apampati rusham samuttam shamayan swayadhyam vyavochat ango pashamam gatha. Thus mocked by an enemy whose vanity knew no bounds, the worshipful Lord of the waters waxed angry. But by dint of his reason, he managed to curb the anger that had sprung up in him. And he replied, "O dear one, we have now desisted from warfare, having grown too old for combat." Purport. As we see, warmongering materialists always create fighting without reason. Next. Pashyannanyam purushat puratanat yasam yuge pamramarga kodam aradayesha tyasura vishebitam manasvinoyam grinate bhavantrisham. You're so skilled in war that I do not see anyone else but the most ancient person, Lord Vishnu, who can give satisfaction in battle to you. Therefore, O chief of the Asuras, approach him, whom even heroes like you mention with praise. Purport. Aggressive materialistic warriors are actually punished by the Supreme Lord for their policy of unnecessarily disturbing world peace. Therefore, Varuna advised Hiranyaksha that the right course to satisfy his fighting spirit would be to seek to fight with Vishnu. And I guess I'll read the last verse of the chapter as well. Tambhiramara sabipatya vismaya shayishyase vira shayeshva virvrita yasvat vidanam asatam prashantaye rupani dhate sadanugrahijaya. Varuna continued, "On reaching him, you will be rid of your pride, and at once, and will lie down on the field of battle, surrounded by dogs, for eternal sleep. It is in order to exterminate wicked fellows like you and to show his grace to the virtuous that he assumes his various incarnations like Varaha." Purport. Asuras do not know that their bodies consist of the 5 elements of material nature, and that when they fall, they become objects of pastimes for dogs and vultures. Varuna advised Hiranyaksha to meet Vishnu in his boar incarnation, so that his hankering for aggressive war would be satisfied and his powerful body would be vanquished. I have moved the marker to the next. Om Jnanatimirandasya Kinanjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Mukam Karati Vachalam Pangum Langate Girim Yat Kripa Tamaham Vande Shri Dinatare. Panchakalparubhya Kripa Sindhubhyeva Cha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Srivasadi Gaura Bhattavrinda. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So I'll just read all of the verses again. Just translations. You are the guardian of an entire sphere and a ruler of wide fame, having crushed the might of arrogant and conceited warriors, and have conquered all the Daityas and Danavas in the world. You once performed Rajasuya sacrifice to the Lord. Thus mocked by an enemy whose vanity knew no bounds, the worshipful Lord of the waters waxed angry, but by dint of his reason, he managed to curb the anger that had sprung up in him. And he replied, O dear one, we have now desisted from warfare, having grown too old for combat. You're so skilled in war that I do not see anyone else but the most ancient person, Lord Vishnu, who can give satisfaction in battle to you. Therefore, O chief of the Asuras, approach him, whom even heroes like you mention with praise. Varuna continued, on reaching him, you will be rid of your pride at once and will lie down on the field of battle, surrounded by dogs, for eternal sleep. It is in order to exterminate wicked fellows like you and to show his grace to the virtuous that he assumes his various incarnations like Varaha. So what's going on here in the Bhagavatam is that the Lord is being praised. Not direct at the moment. Oh, wait. Does that work? Yet? Okay. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Yeah,
not yet. It's working now. Yes, now it's working. I'll just set it to close. There's no echo. So what we have heard here is actually glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Not directly, but indirectly, a scene is being set. And what is the scene? That's the scene of the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the incarnation of Varaha, or boar incarnation. Now, several interesting things here, as pointed out by Srila Prabhupada in the commentaries to these verses. First, we have a person who has gone out of his mind For what reason is he going around harassing other people? And merely wanting to fight. It's interesting how this fighting spirit in people is always there. And in civilized ways, this fighting spirit or competitive spirit exhibits in forms such as sports, for example, where people want to compete, etc., etc. And then when it's not civilized, then people like individuals like Hiranyaksha, they literally go around and they want to fight people. And they want to. And these are fighters, by the way. I'm not sure if that's in America or that's worldwide. UFC, Ultimate Fighting Championship or something like that, I'm not sure. But these people fight with very few rules. They just put a little bit of some cushion over the knuckles and then they fight and they beat each other severely. And they take pleasure in it. Chivalry. The fighting spirit. Now, Vaishnava does not want to compete with anyone. A person who's under the influence of mode of passion has a need to prove themselves. They want to prove themselves. They want to prove themselves to themselves. They want to prove themselves to others. They want to dominate. Why in the world would one want to dominate? Like, what is the value in being better, stronger, dominating anyway, anyone? What is the value in it? What's the reason for it? The reason is the mode of passion and the mode of ignorance, the lower modes of material nature. So when the person is under the influence of the lower modes of material nature, then the person has these kind of desires. Otherwise, person who is pure, who's not under the influence of the lower modes of material nature, is happy with things as they are. That's the mode of goodness. Mode of goodness is, what does the mode of goodness? It means as it is. The person does not need to change anything. The person understands there is God, there is soul, there's a loving relationship between the two, exhibited in the capacity of service, and everything is beautiful. The person in the lower modes always wants to change something. They don't like how they look. They're not happy with themselves. They're not happy with others. They're never happy. There's no end to this. What's interesting, in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says that the Maya Prasada Samyatvam, that first austerity of the mind is prasad, that the person learns to be satisfied. Why would that be austerity of the mind? Because by our nature, we are satisfied. And when we're not in our natural position, then we're not satisfied. And Hiranyaksha was extremely not in his natural position. And so therefore he was extremely not satisfied. Why go around and harass people? Why go around and show your superiority to anyone? Why in the world do that? Because the person is harassed by the lower modes of material nature, namely the mode of ignorance and the mode of passion. Otherwise, person is very happy to be the servant of a servant of a servant of a servant of Krishna's servant. We see also in spiritual circles, it's kind of an interesting thing where, like in Krishna consciousness, for example, where the value of a servant of a servant of a servant of Krishna's servant is recognized and valued, then people want to be the servants of the servants of the servants of Krishna's servants. But why? So so they can be recognized as such. That's again a subtle form of desire for dominance. I shall dominate this wrong by being the most humble of everyone. There's interesting phenomena once I met one Buddhist monk, and he told me how they, when they fast in their ashram, when they fast, they don't tell anyone that they're fasting. Why? Because if they tell everyone that they're fasting, they may become proud. So they fast without telling anyone that they're fasting. But then they become proud that they have not told anyone that they're fasting. So there's no end to these mind games. But these eventually are not mind games, these are soul games. Soul games in the sense that it's not the mind to be blamed. Mind is simply facilitating that which soul wants. When the soul does not want, or when the soul does not want to be the master but wants to be the servant, then the mind follows. Mind is not a living being. Mind is not a being. Mind is an instrument. It's matter. It's subtle matter. It's like a machine created by Krishna to facilitate that which the soul wants. So when the soul is spiritually contaminated or unhealthy and therefore wants to dominate, then there is the mind to facilitate that. And then the mind, apparently the mind wants, the mind urges, but mind again is just a facility so that we can carry out our heart desire. In philosophy, this is called the existential question. The existential question is the question, why do I exist? And we all exist. If we didn't endeavor, we would all die. You have to endeavor to survive, to eat, to stay clean, to stay healthy. Young people don't believe this, but as you age, you see how much maintenance there has to. Even if you catch a little cold, if you don't treat it, you die. So you have to stay in the warm, bring something warm. Maybe take some honey or something. So it takes effort to survive. And then the question is, well, why are you taking effort to survive? Why don't you just not survive? Why? I don't want to die, but why? I know you don't want to die, but the question is why you don't want to die. And it's interesting, every one of us has answers to that question, but most people don't care to study their own answer to that question. And for the most people, the answer to the existential question is sense gratification. So they can be the enjoyer. But in Krishna consciousness, we practice Krishna consciousness so that we can change the answer to that question in the depths of our consciousness. We don't live to be the center of attention. We don't live to be the enjoyer. We live to be a servant. Of course, that's a paradox, apparent paradox. People who try to be happy are people who tend to not be happy. People who don't try to be happy and simply are trying to be the servant of a servant of a servant of Krishna. Servant are the ones who become happy. And the illusion always, without exception, plays the same trick. And the trick is you are not the servant, you are the enjoyer. You are the master and you are the enjoyer. And it's interesting how in religious circles, which are meant to make us all the servant of a servant of a servant. In the Bible, interesting that there was a statement by Jesus where it says, those of you who shall be the last shall be the first. And those of you who is going to be the first will be the last. In other words, the servant of a servant of a servant. And then it said, even the Son of God, speaking of himself, even the Son of God has come here to serve. So those of you who shall be the last among you will be the first. So all self-realized souls know this, but those who are not self-realized, they fall prey to this illusion. And illusion always plays the same trick. So here we have the demon, above all demons, Hiranyaksha. And why is he demon? Because he's the embodiment of the ultimate ego trip. Namely, I'm the master, I'm going to dominate, I'm better, stronger, etc., etc., etc. These are the kind of things that this person's thinking about, instead of thinking how to serve everyone and how to serve Krishna. He's thinking how to dominate everyone and be the person number one. But person number one is Krishna, and everyone else are the servant. There's no love in the hearts of these kind of people. Anyone who wants to dominate, anyone who does not want to be the servant is a person who has signed up for a program that's going to dry up their heart. And it's one sad story. It's one sad story. And there's so many examples throughout history of this kind of illusion. It is the service that fills the heart with love and devotion. And it is the desire to dominate that dries up the heart. And then such people, sometimes they get successful and dominate and become rich and powerful and famous and whatnot, but empty-hearted. Then sometimes they literally go crazy. Now I'm thinking of some examples, but I shall not mention. These people are very famous. And some of them have passed away in the greatest of misery. And yet they were famous, they were powerful. People so badly wanted to be like them. Fabulously rich, influential, but heart like a desert. On the other hand, we have Srila Rupa Goswami. On the other hand, we have Srila Rupa Goswami, a penniless monk, a person without a penny, literally not owning a thing, sitting in Vrindavan and chanting Hare Krishna. And thinking, how? What a fortune. Just heart filled with devotion for Krishna, for all parts and parcels of Krishna. For his brother Sanatana, for the other Goswamis, for all the Vaishnavas. His heart filled with love. A very blissful existence. And on the other hand, we have Hiranyaksha just traveling all over the world. Who here, and he's so arrogant, he doesn't even want to fight people who are puny. He really wants someone who can put up a good fight. So that he can really demonstrate his power. Because, when a big person beats up a small person, there's no glory to it. He really didn't demonstrate his power. But if he can beat up a very powerful person, then everyone can see his power. So Hiranyaksha, he wouldn't even fight Varunadev. Varunadev is a very powerful person. Very powerful person. But Varunadev, he's telling, I'm old. Why do you want to fight me? Go fight Vishnu. He's powerful. He's a worthy opponent. And we'll see, he's so crazy out of his mind that he's going to do that. And that's where he's going to meet his end. Hiranyaksha. So, in this world, the idea of owning, possessing, dominating is a very prevalent one. And to be the servant of a servant of a servant of Krishna is not a prevalent one. And unfortunately, even in religious circles where everything is arranged and meant to teach us to be dasa, 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 anudasa, people still fall prey to illusion, and then they'll become humble, they'll become a servant of a servant just so they could be known as a servant of a servant. But Vaishnava is a person whose heart is truly filled with bhakti. That person is happy to serve. And when that person has the opportunity to serve, then that person is happy. And not serve because they're going to be applauded for it or become famous, etc. As a matter of fact, these kind of things to a Vaishnava often perceives these things as a adoration, as an unnecessary temptation. But it's interesting how the fame tends to serve those who are humble like a blade of grass and tolerant like a tree. This has come up in the conversation of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu with what's his name? No, not Sarabama. What a blank. That doesn't matter. Yes, Sarabama Bhattacharya, the conversation of who's famous. Who is famous? And so the answer is that to be devotee is famous. Why? Because the fame personified serves the one who becomes the servant of a servant of Krishna's servant. But what's interesting thing is that devotee does not want the fame, but the fame comes and begs for service. In similar way, liberation is described as a servant of a Vaishnava. That devotee doesn't care even about liberation, just wants to serve. And liberation comes and begs for some service. Is there anything I can do for you? And in the initial stages of one's spiritual development, the person may want liberation, may want some fame, recognition, etc., etc. But these are very beginning stages of Krishna consciousness. When one makes progress in Krishna consciousness, then one does not want anything except the opportunity for service. As a matter of fact, in the beginning, sometimes due to the conditioning, the person may even need some fame. some recognition. And then in due course of time, the person actually matures, becomes spiritually healthy, and doesn't want any of it. So this is the demon Hiranyaksha and his problems. But all of this is simply an introduction into the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the incarnation of Varaha. The whole of Srimad Bhagavatam is meant to glorify Krishna, and not only that it's meant to glorify Krishna, but it glorifies Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. It is one purely devotional expression. And even when he speaks about demons such as Hiranyaksha, or he speaks about the creation of the universe, he does not do anything else besides glorifying the Supreme Personality of Godhead. This creation is not independent from the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The demons such as Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu are not independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Devotees are not independent of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So when they're spoken of, they're always spoken of in terms of their relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the activities of Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu are going to bring about the appearance and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And that is the subject matter of the Bhagavatam. So this is an introduction into the appearance of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Okay. Are there any questions or comments, perhaps? Ideally on this topic.
It looks like it's already set up everything.
You say that again?
These things already set up by the Lord. Everything, and then why worry?
Why worry?
Yeah.
Everything is set up by the Lord, so why worry? Well, that's an interesting thing. First, we have to understand how everything is set up by the Lord. One way in which everything is set up by the Lord is that we are given freedom of choice. So that means that we literally have the freedom of choice. That means that Krishna has not set up what we are going to choose, but he has set up the freedom of our choice. Now, in terms of this particular pastime, yes, this was all pre-set by Krishna. So we know what's going to happen to Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. And of course, now we know because it has already happened. And it's happening all the time in every creation. So we're reading the Bhagavatam, so we know. But devotees were not. When this was all happening, they didn't know. They didn't know what was going to happen, what was going to be the outcome. For example, when the Lord fought Hiranyaksha, sages, was it sages or the demigods? I can't remember. They were a little bit afraid. They didn't know what the outcome was going to be. And so they hid behind the clouds. And some were even saying, dear Lord, the sun is about to set. And the demons become more powerful once the sun sets. So please kill him now before he gets stronger. Dispose of him now before he gets stronger. So obviously they didn't know. Now they might have what's interesting that one who's a theist, even a theist, one who's truly a theist, believer in God, even though he may not know the outcome of everything and may feel some level of anxiety, but deep down does not feel anxiety in the sense that believes that ultimately everything will be the way the Lord wants it. So in this way, devotee does his best and then leaves the rest to Krishna, and happily leaves the rest to Krishna without anxiety. So that's how it goes. Is that what you meant?
That's all.
Mm-hmm. All right. Anything else, perhaps? All right. Thank you for your attention. Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai, Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki Jai.